The man moved through the night like a shadow. There was no urgency in his stride, no nervous glances, just eerie calm. A predator with purpose. It was early October 2022 in Stockton, California. A city struggling with poverty, rising crime, and now, unknowingly, hosting one of the deadliest serial shooters in its history. When police finally arrested 43-year-old Wesley Brownlee, the community was stunned. But by then, 5 men had already been ambushed and executed, and no one had seen it coming. This story isn't just about cold-blooded killings. It's about the psychology behind the predator. The unraveling of a man whose past, trauma, and chilling behavior formed the perfect storm. The story of Wesley Brownlee is not only tragic and horrifying, it's deeply revealing of how unchecked violence, when hidden behind a quiet demeanor, can fester into something monstrous. Wesley Brownlee didn't begin as a killer. Born in San Francisco in 1979, his childhood was marred by loss. His older brother was murdered when Wesley was just a teenager. That violent trauma seems to have been a defining moment. Friends and former neighbors would later say Wesley changed, became more withdrawn, suspicious, and angry. But no one thought he would ever become a serial killer. He had trouble with the law early on. Drug arrests, weapons charges, short prison stints. The kind of background that doesn't shock in certain parts of California. But what made Brownlee different was how controlled he appeared on the surface. To some, he was just another man trying to get by, working jobs, keeping to himself. But behind that facade, something darker was brewing. From April 2021 to September 2022, Stockton began to see a string of shootings. Men, often Hispanic, ambushed alone at night with no apparent motive. The attacks were quiet, swift, lethal. Police were baffled. At first, no one linked the cases, but the pattern was there. The killer targeted victims who were alone, always in poorly lit areas. No robbery, no sexual assault, just a single deadly act. One shot, sometimes 2, then silence. It was as if the killer was rehearsing, perfecting, and Stockton had no idea it was in the grip of a cold, clinical executioner. The victims varied in age, from a 35-year-old to a man in his early 50s. But what they had in common was their vulnerability. One was a man sitting in his car. Another was walking down a dim alley. All men, all alone. All killed in the same brutal, remorseless fashion. The randomness of the killings terrified the city. But what people didn't know yet was that the killer was also moving across state lines. Wesley Brownlee had relocated temporarily to Chicago, and in 2021, a chillingly similar shooting occurred there. One that would later be linked to him through ballistic evidence. It suggested this wasn't a man who snapped. This was someone who hunted, who stalked, who traveled with murder in his mind. By mid-2022, Stockton police were desperate. Surveillance footage finally revealed a slender man in dark clothing with a distinctive walk. He wore a black mask, black jacket, dark pants, always dressed to blend into the night. The public was alerted. Tips flooded in. But it wasn't until October 15th that police moved in. They had been tailing a man who fit the profile. At 2 a.m., they watched as he drove slowly, silently through neighborhoods. No music, no lights. He circled blocks again and again, hunting. When officers arrested him, they found a loaded handgun, the same caliber used in the killings. Wesley Brownlee was caught mid-pursuit, about to kill again. Latest twist. The suspect was actively surveilled and only just captured even as late as this month, June 2025. The arrest wasn't a lucky break. It was the result of a high-stakes surveillance operation that lasted weeks. High tension and drama surrounded those final days. Brownlee, armed and silently prowling public spaces, posed an imminent threat. Every moment he spent circling neighborhoods was a potential prelude to another life lost. Officers watching him described the weight of that tension, the knowledge that one wrong move or delayed reaction could mean death for another innocent person. The shock that followed his arrest was overwhelming. How had a man with no recent violent record, no media attention, and no history of mental illness managed to kill at least 6 people, possibly more, without anyone noticing? The answer lies in Brownlee's disturbing psychological profile. According to investigators, he displayed signs of obsessive-compulsive behavior, the methodical nature of his killings, the careful selection of locations, his complete lack of remorse. This wasn't random rage. This was ritual. Psychologists analyzing the case say Brownlee may have been driven by control and suppressed rage. Some believe he was reliving the trauma of his brother's death, taking vengeance on the world. Others think he derived a twisted sense of satisfaction from taking life in the quietest, cleanest way possible. No chaos, just death. A silent transaction between predator and prey. But what's more terrifying is that he almost got away with it. In the days following the arrest, ballistics matched his gun to multiple crime scenes. One shooting in April 2021, another in August, then September. Then 5 more in Stockton between July and September 2022. Each death revealed a chilling detail. The killer approached quickly, never spoke, fired without warning, then vanished. No witnesses, no second chances. It was pure execution. Investigators say what finally led to Brownlee's capture was a mix of community tips, surveillance, and behavioral profiling. Officers noticed his pattern. He drove slowly at night, returned to the same areas, looked for men who were isolated. Once he circled the same block over 20 times before spotting a man alone. That man was saved only because police were watching. Brownlee was stopped just blocks away. The deep dive into his capture revealed the true scale of the police effort. This was not a fluke. Authorities had been quietly building their case. Hours of surveillance, digital forensics, geographic profiling. Brownlee was being watched long before the public ever heard his name. And the closer they got, the more dangerous he became. That final night, as he circled a neighborhood with a loaded weapon ready, was the moment of truth. He was seconds from killing again. In his car, officers found a black mask, gloves, a semi-automatic pistol, no identification, no wallet, no personal effects, just tools of death. When interrogated, he said almost nothing. No confession, no denial, just silence, the face of a man who had accepted his truth, that he was a killer. The community of Stockton mourned. Candlelight vigils were held. Families of the victims asked why it took so long. But the truth is, Brownlee hid in plain sight. He was smart, calculated, never killed in the same spot twice, always moved quickly, and never left evidence. Until he got sloppy, until he got greedy, or maybe until he wanted to be caught. Some profilers believe serial killers reach a point where the thrill is not just in the kill, but in the risk. That they begin to play cat and mouse with authorities. Brownlee's final days before arrest suggest this. Driving in circles with a loaded weapon. Mask on the seat, almost daring to be noticed. It was either compulsion or arrogance. Either way, it ended the same, with handcuffs. What's deeply disturbing is that this case didn't gain national attention until much later. Stockton's serial shooter wasn't a household name. There were no headlines screaming his name across the country. And yet, the horror he inflicted was on par with some of the most infamous serial killers in American history. The difference? Brownlee killed fast, quiet, without signature, without spectacle. Serial killers like Ted Bundy or the Zodiac taunted the media, made themselves into monsters. Brownlee did the opposite. He erased himself. He operated in silence, which made him in many ways even more terrifying. Today, Wesley Brownlee awaits trial. Prosecutors have charged him with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. The evidence is overwhelming. Ballistics, surveillance, patterns. He hasn't entered a plea. His court appearances are brief, emotionless, like the killings themselves. What remains is the legacy of fear he left behind. The victims, all men with families, dreams, and lives, were reduced to headlines. But they deserve more. Paul Yaw, Juan Cruz, Salvador Debude Jr., Jonathan Hernandez Rodriguez, Lawrence Lopez Sr. Their deaths weren't random to them. They were final, brutal, senseless. The case of Wesley Brownlee forces us to confront difficult truths. That serial killers still exist. That they don't always come with warning signs. That some monsters wear masks, but others just wear silence. And it begs the question, how many other cities have shadows walking through them, waiting for the night to fall? Thank you for watching this chilling deep dive into the case of Wesley Brownlee, the deadliest Stockton shooter in history. If you found this story insightful, disturbing, or thought-provoking, please take a moment to like this video, share it with true crime fans, and subscribe to CrimeBot Chronicles. We bring you real cases, real analysis, and real horror every week. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below. Do you think Wesley Brownlee would have ever stopped? Or was he just getting started? Your thoughts matter. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the quietest people hide the loudest darkness. Until next time.